Yo yo, what's up? Today I had a fun idea of what to talk about. So watch this video if you want to learn something really cool that's gonna help you not just with your spiritual things, but just everywhere in life. It's a really cool trick. The one who really taught me this was Miyamoto Musashi in the Book of Five Rings. That's where I first came across this. Well, I've seen it mentioned many times, but that's the first time it really hit me what he meant. So yeah, watch this if you want to learn something really cool that's gonna change how you see anything, doing anything. So the point is why, how should I put this? I don't know how to say it, so I'm just gonna give an example. When you're sword fighting, right? If you have a definite sword style, like a certain technique, right? That technique is predictable, right? It's limited to what the technique encompasses, right? And something that's predictable has weaknesses, right? Is that true? Can we see that? So Musashi didn't have any sword technique, right? So if you have no sword technique, then you have no weaknesses and no predictable movements. So in the case of sword fighting, right, having no definite sword technique is the strongest sword technique. That's why he was undefeated. He was unbeatable. Does that make sense? So you can apply this to anything in life. But just, I'm gonna keep going with the whole sword fighting example. Oh, oh my god. I'm walking on this log, I fell again, and it's slippery again, so I'm cooked. Gotta be careful. Oh shit. Never let them know your next move. Can I step here or will I sink? I'll step here. Anyways, does that make sense? I really want you to understand this, because it's really cool. Having no sword technique, just what he did was just swing his sword, understand the movement of the sword, right? How it moves with the body, with your arms, whatever. He just understood the sword, and he beat everyone because he didn't have a technique. He was completely adaptable, like water. Like water. See, when a river, when it faces an obstacle, there's some rocks in the way. What does water do? It flows around it in whatever way is possible, right? Right? When Musashi encountered an opponent, right? What did he do? He fought in whatever way was best to win. He wasn't thinking how to hit, what techniques to use, whatever. He wasn't thinking at all, you know, and without hesitation, just by mastering the movement of the sword, without thinking, he struck before the opponent even knew he struck. He won before the battle even began. Because, see, most people, how they do things is they see, they think, and then based on what they think to do, they do it, right? So their actions are based on an abstraction of what's seen based on your past conditioning, right? Or they're locked in a technique, so they're trying to do techniques, right? But in a real battle, the best technique is just to be fully adaptable, have no definite technique, move without thinking, without hesitation, because that is the fastest way to move, and just use what you see to adapt and respond and attack, right? And this applies to everything, right? Everything in life. The moment you lock yourself in a box, you have clear weaknesses, you have clear limitations, and you're not like water responding to An obstacle, you're maybe like a stiff log in the water that gets stuck on some rocks. Gets stuck. You're not flexible, right? So how the best sword technique is no sword technique, right? I'm gonna connect this to no self, right? No self does not mean you stop existing, you stop thinking, you stop breathing, you stop living. It means you're not locked in a pattern of being something. You're like water. Every obstacle that comes, you adapt to it, you flow around it, instead of being like, oh, that doesn't fit what I think I am, it doesn't fit my ideas of how things should be. Fuck, I'm stuck. Or like, I can't do this. You just respond and adapt. And you have no weaknesses. So no self is not, oh, I don't exist, I'm all apathetic and like weak and stuff. It's the strongest self is no self. The strongest sword technique is no sword technique, right? Think about it. Really think about it. Does something that isn't definite have any definite weakness? You have to be like water. You know, no self is not non-existent. It's like more like water. It takes any shape the moment needs it to take. You know, and it is genuinely how we actually are. But then, like, because we have these thoughts, images of the past, right? And we relate the past to the present moment. Um, we sort of miss a lot of stuff or like box things into what we know. Like, I don't know shit. Like this tree is not the same as this tree. Similar, right? And if I were to be just like they're all trees, I might miss how each one is unique in its own way. I mean, that's not very helpful right now, but I don't know, it makes me appreciate each tree a little bit more. But like, imagine in real life, right? Let's say you come into a challenging situation and all you base your responses to the situation on is previous situations you've been in. But just like every tree is different from another, each situation, right, is slightly different from the other situation, right? So instead of, try this out, instead of responding from memory, right, from your ideas about the situation, try to respond from seeing what you see, right? And just act like you can use memory, it can be a useful tool, but just act in accordance with what's happening right now, not with what you remembered happened before, right? Now people say learn from past mistakes. Yeah, sure, that all goes into experience. That's all part of the now. Even when you remember a memory, you're remembering it right now, right? Um, but like when you see all of it, sort of like create this artificial distance for the time being, and just see everything as a whole, right? You see, it's all one big movement, and not responding from any previous ideas or patterns, but purely spontaneously from what's seen, magically gives you the best possible response. I don't know how to explain it, but responding from nothing gives a much more appropriate response, like water that flows perfectly around the obstacle, than responding from memory, right? Hope that makes sense. It's not just in sword fighting, it's everywhere, right? Every sport, everything. Like if you're a soccer player and you have predictable movement, then the enemy team is going to figure out how you move and they're going to counter you. But if you're completely in the moment, directly responding to whatever the other opposing players do, you're unpredictable. You have no weakness. They cannot counter you, right? That makes sense. It's the same with no self. If you're stuck in a self, you're like not like water. You don't adapt to the moment. You even reject it, and that causes suffering. Instead of just not being anything and being exactly what the moment requires. You know, you don't lose your memory, you don't lose your experience, you don't lose your preferences, whatever. They're part of the whole movement, right? But they go with the movement instead of resisting it because it goes against your idea of a self. You go with the movement, right? You basically, reality gives you a little push because you're part of the whole movement. And you're always part of the whole movement. Just the idea that you're not is what causes suffering, right? Does that make sense? So yeah, no sword style, best sword style. It's the same with opinions, right? If you hold on to your opinions, you have definite opinions. You're not open to other interpretations. You're stuck, and you don't learn. You stop learning. I guess if you hold on to knowledge, right? If you have a definite, like this is this, right? That is that. Uh, you have like an identity. You have a form, right? You're closed off. If I say I know what a tree is, I stopped learning about trees the moment I know what it is, right? If I say I know what life is, stop learning about life. So if you don't have an opinion, it's the strongest opinion because you're open to whatever happens right now, which allows you to be aware of everything and respond accordingly. And since there's no self, anyways, things just arise spontaneously. Seeing this clearly, an appropriate response arises spontaneously, right? Without effort. Like imagine, if you put your hand on a hot stove, you move by yourself, right? You didn't use effort, you just moved, right? You didn't have to think about it or try to. You responded based on what you saw. See, strong experiences usually override our conditioning. That's why some people chase mystical experience because it can sort of override our conditioning and get us into this state of contentment, our natural state. But see, the trick is this, right? Why people chase stuff. This is a little off topic, but I just want to repeat this. The trick is, so we're satisfied when we're not lacking something, right? When we don't feel like we're lacking something. And when we want something, for example, more money, I'm going to just give the most general example. We get more money, we no longer temporarily want more money, so our lack is temporarily fulfilled. And because we lack nothing, we feel happy, we feel satisfied. And then we attribute that feeling of satisfaction not to the fact that we're not lacking anything, but the money made me happy. So then we chase more money so we can feel happy again, right? So the happiness comes from not lacking anything, not wanting anything to be different, but because getting something we thought we were lacking for temporarily makes us feel like we're not lacking something and we feel happy, we attribute that feeling to that thing we got instead of realizing it's just our natural state when we stop striving, chasing something, right? Trying to be something, right? And that's one of the traps, trying to be something. Not only is it chasing something, which causes suffering because we want something to be different, it's also limiting us in how we respond to the present moment, which is all we have. We only have the present moment, right? And the self is just like a thought, a collection of psychological memory we have, things we identify with, that sort of shapes patterns on how we act. So now we have clear weaknesses, we have clear things we can do. You know how some people say like, "Oh, that's just not for me," or like, "I just can't do that. I'm not like that," right? Of course you can. Anyone can do most things if you're decently healthy, whatever. Of course you can do that. Of course you can. But thinking you can't limits you, and it's a weakness then, because you put yourself in a box. I can't do this. And this is not supposed to be motivational. Now it sounds like that. My point is, being nothing is the strong in anything. No sword style, no self, no whatever. Sorry, I'm a little limited in the examples I give because of my interests. I can't generate better examples. Let me try. Just sit for a second. I guess personality, if you have a definite way of acting, right? You can't communicate with everyone that well, right? But if you're open to just responding to people how it's best to respond to them, not in a fake way, but just like in the moment, then you're gonna communicate with others better and get along with others better, because you're gonna sort of adapt and respond to how they understand you, so you can communicate better. Hope that example made sense. It works everywhere. Like if you're not locked into something and you're completely free from it, right? You can respond perfectly, and that doesn't mean you can't get better at stuff. You can get better at wielding the sword, you can get better at speaking, at communicating, right? That's not a trap, that's just improvement. No problem with that. My point is that having any definite way of being, acting, technique in whatever sport or activity you're pursuing always limits you, always gives you definite weaknesses, openings, and limits how you can respond to the situation, which makes you respond to situations less skillfully, less appropriately, and it often leads to bad consequences. I hope I got my point across. I hope you could see this. Pay attention to this in your own life, please, for your own sake. And if you want to see more videos like this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in a future video. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.